Welcome to the 2020 virtual Veterans Day program at EMS. Would you please rise as able and join us in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The flag folding ceremony described by the uniformed services is a dramatic and uplifting way to honor the flag on special days like Memorial Day or Veterans Day. It is sometimes used at retirement ceremonies.
The flag folding ceremony represents the same religious principles on which our country was originally founded. The portion of the flag denoting honor in the canton of blue, containing the stars representing the states our veterans served in uniform. The canton field of blue dresses from left to right and is inverted when draped as a pall on a casket of a veteran who has served our country in uniform.
In the armed forces of the United States, at the ceremony of retreat, the flag is lowered, folded in a triangle fold, and kept under watch throughout the night as a tribute to our nation's honored dead. The next morning it is brought out and, at the ceremony of reveille, run aloft as a symbol of our belief in the resurrection of the body.
The first fold of our flag is a symbol of life.
The second fold is a symbol of our belief in the eternal life.
The third fold is made in honor and remembrance of the veterans departing our ranks who gave a portion of our life for the defense of our country to attain a peace throughout the world.
The fourth fold represents our weaker nature. For as American citizens trusting in God, it is to Him we turn in times of peace as well as in times of war for His divine guidance.
The fifth fold is a tribute to our country, for in the words of Stephen Decatur, our country in dealing with other countries, may she always be right, but it is still our country, right or wrong.
The sixth fold is for where our hearts lie. It is with our heart that we pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The seventh fold is a tribute to our armed forces, for it is through the armed forces that we protect our country and our flag against all her enemies, whether they be found within or without the boundaries of our republic.
The eighth fold is a tribute to the one who entered into the valley of the shadow of death, that we might see the light of day, and to honor Mother, for whom it flies on Mother's Day.
The ninth fold is a tribute to womanhood, for it has been through their faith, love, loyalty, and devotion that the character of the men and women who have made this country great have been molded.
The 10th fold is a tribute to Father, for He, too, has given His sons and daughters for the defense of our country since they were first born.
The 11th fold in the eyes of a Hebrew citizen represents the lower portion of the seal of King David and King Solomon, and glorifies in their eyes the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob.
The 12th fold in the eyes of a Christian citizen represents an emblem of eternity and glorifies, in their eyes, God the Father, the Son, and Holy Ghost.
When the flag is completely folded, the stars are uppermost, reminding us of our national motto, "In God we trust."
After the flag is completely folded and tucked in, it takes on the appearance of a cocked hat, ever reminding us of the soldiers who served under General George Washington and the sailors and Marines who served under Captain John Paul Jones, who were followed by their comrades and shipmates in the armed forces of the United States, preserving for us the rights, privileges, and freedoms we enjoy today.
The noble and the brave, a Veterans Day tribute. When America had an urgent need, these brave ones raised a hand. No hesitation held them back. They were proud to take a stand. They left their friends and their family. They gave up a normal life to serve their country and their God. They plowed into the strife. They fought for freedom and for peace on strange and foreign shores. Some lost new friends, some lost their lives in long and brutal wars. Other veterans answered a call to support the ones who fought. Their country had requirements for the essential skills they brought. We salute every one of them, the noble and the brave, the ones still with us here today and the ones who rest in a grave. So here's to our country's heroes. They're a cut above the rest. Let's give the honor that is due to our country's very best.
Hello, we are so happy to be here virtually with all of you. We are here today to celebrate and thank our veterans, both those with us and those who have moved on. Veterans Day is a day where we recognize, honor, and thank all of those who have served in the United States Armed Forces. We want to say thank you for the time you have served and sacrificed you have made to keep our country safe. My classmates and I will now read a series of poems to show our thanks and appreciation and honor to all of our veterans. We thank you. The Best Day on Earth, a Veterans Day tribute. If someone has done military service, they earn the title veteran and more. They earn our deepest respect and admiration, that they are special, no one can ignore. They sacrificed the comforts we enjoy. The list is long and all the things they gave. Our veterans are extraordinary people. They're loyal, dedicated, true, and brave. When terror and invasion were real threats, they showed us that they could handle any storm. We owe our freedoms and our very lives to our veterans who served in uniform. Our veterans could be celebrities. They're exceptional. No other group compares. We're regretful for many things they've done. They're always in our hearts and in our prayers. We owe our veterans support and friendship. Let no one ever question what they're worth. These men and women served us, our country, our veterans, and the very best on earth.
Early in 1968, North Vietnamese troops and the Viet Cong launched the largest battle of the Vietnam War, known as the Tet Offensive. They attacked more than 100 cities, towns, and villages in South Vietnam, along with the American embassy in Saigon. It was a 2-month struggle that resulted in the death of hundreds of soldiers and civilians. When it was over, there was no clear victory for either side. However, the Tet Offensive marked a significant turning point in public opinion and political support in America, which ultimately led to the drawdown of U.S. troops' involvement and eventual withdrawal in 1973. The Vietnam War lasted 19 years. 19 years of unimaginable images, injuries, death, and shell shock, and unimaginable stories of soldiers who faced it then and some who still face it today. The following poem, Welcome to a New Reality, by Alan Charles Bennett, is just one of those soldiers' voices.
Welcome to a New Reality by Alan Charles Bennett. At once, in an instant, how peaceful everything became. A pale shroud covered my life. The only memory of reality, my pounding, racing heart, echoing throughout my body. Sleep, deep sleep, ever restful sleep, was coming upon my senses. The warmth of a lazy summer afternoon. A gentle, cooling breeze across my face. A powerful drug had anesthetized me. The dry rice field became my bed. A few grass stems, a protective mat. My steel helmet, my pillow. My green, worn and soiled uniform, a blanket. Yes, I shall rest here and not be awakened. In the far distance, I hear muffled sounds of jungle boots running, rucksacks dropped, rifle shots fired, shouts of air support. Yes, nothing will disturb my sleep. Ever deeper, I sink into my restful abyss. How wonderful this place called nothing. Death must be like this slumbered feeling, a simple going away from all things. How warm, content, and peaceful. to drift away on a light summer's breeze and not even care to look back. Suddenly, an abrupt jolt, anguished yells of spirit returning to the hardened flesh, a man and life made real again, the pale shroud of bliss brushed aside. Arise, young soldier, now face your task. A new reality has come upon you.
My name is Tim Conway. I'm the assistant principal at Ellsworth Middle School. Our keynote speaker for this year's Veterans Day ceremony is Mr. Jim McKahan, who proudly served our country as a member of the United States Navy throughout the first half of the 1960s. This was a time of great geopolitical tension with the Cold War at its peak and our nation's involvement in Vietnam beginning to ramp up. Mr. McKahan flew on board air intelligence missions around the world, departing from and landing on aircraft carriers in any and all conditions. As you'll hear him say, Mr. McKahan was looking for adventure, and he certainly found it. Upon his honorable discharge from the U.S. Navy, Mr. McKahan farmed and became an accomplished artist, teaching art at the university level. I met with him at his studio in rural Pierce County for this presentation and could have talked to him for hours, hearing of his life's adventures and the lessons he's learned along the way. I'm honored to introduce our Veterans Day keynote speaker, Mr. Jim McKahan.
I would begin by saying, qualifying this my whole experience by, saying again, I wasn't waving anybody's flag when I was just a kid looking for adventure, and I found it. So, and in my old age, I look back on that and I say, I was just lucky, not only to have experienced it, but to have survived it. So, that's the truth, that's the reality.
Absolutely.
I guess a good way to start would be, I was a kid looking for adventure. I got out of high school, hitchhiked to New York, hitchhiked to California, trying to get in the Merchant Marine. I thought that would be a way to see the world, And at that time, U.S. merchant shipping was in a depression, so there was no way. So I just said, well, I'm going to join the Navy and see the world, by God. So that was the beginning. I went through boot camp at Great Lakes, 1960. I scored very well on the, if anybody's thinking of going into the military, be prepared, because those test scores are to some extent going to determine what you end up doing, I just lucked out, and then I scored really high on the GCT, the General Classification Test, which was word usage, reading comprehension, that sort of thing. And but that high score opened the doors to schools, So they said, well, they needed submarine. You talked about submarines, And they said they needed submarine. They were expanding the submarine fleet at that time. Well, I was way too tall, 6'5", And they said, no, you can't do that. And I wasn't crazy about that anyway, But they said, well, we have this new area called air intelligence, And it's a new school, And the good thing about it is, to advance and rank, it's wide open, because it's you would be, I think I was only the second or third class that had gone through the school,
Sure.
So the higher ranks were wide open, if you were going to make a career out of it, which I wasn't, but I didn't even care about that stuff, so anyway, I went through to the Fleet Air Intelligence Training Center in Norfolk, Naval Air Station at Norfolk. Went through air crew training at, we did it with, there was a Marine base at Cherry Point. That's where I did the air crew training. That's another part of that was going through survival training, which kind of surprised me. I said, what the heck, you know, what am I going to do with this, you know? But they said, you don't know where you're going to end up, you know. And so we were slogging through, you know, swamps and things like, they called it Hell Week, you know. And it was kind of tough, but you know, the thing, that's in hindsight, but at the time, you're young, you're a kid, you know, and, hey, this is fun, you know, so it wasn't so bad, but you know, again, I always have to qualify that by saying, number one, I was lucky. Number two, be aware, if you're going to be in the military, you know, be aware as much as you can about just what are you getting into here, you know, what are, you know, what's the reality of this, you know, before you jump in and say, oh, yeah, sure, I'll sign, you know, which is just good advice for anything, you know, for just a life lesson, you know. I got out of school and I got orders to VS-31, which is the anti-submarine squadron, flew S-2Fs. I will send along a portfolio of pictures and records and, you know, things that tell the story, an aspect of the story, a lot better than I can tell it in this short time that we have here. So anyway, I will never forget when I got there, the squadron had already left for the ship, so I had to get up to, the ship was the USS Wasp aircraft carrier. It was berthed in Boston. So I had to get up to Boston, middle of a January night, you know, and I'd never seen a ship before, you know, I just did boot camp in school, you know, and I remember they said, well, told me, they said, well, there's the pier, it's way down at the end of that pier, you know. And it's dark, you know, and they just had, you know, sort of these dim street light type lights along the end of this pier. And I came to the end of the pier and I looked up and I said, well, geez, there's no ship here. This is just a big building, you know. There was a sentry there, you know. And I asked him, I said, you know, I got orders to the USS Wasp, you know, where is it? He said, you're looking at it, you know. And I said, God, you know, it just, I had no it was partly because it was at night in dim light, it seemed a lot bigger, you know. But, so that was the beginning, you know, of the next 2 years of a lot of adventure. I'm not going to sugarcoat any of this. It was tough, you know, at times. I tell my kids this, you know, I said there came a time when it was in the ready room, we were being debriefed for a night flight. Night flights off of aircraft carriers are a whole other world, you know. And I'd been doing it for 2 years, and I remember saying to my first crewman that time was a guy by the name of Charlie Mulvaney, and I said, Charlie, I don't know how many times I can do this, you know. And he said, hey, you know, it's a crapshoot, you know. He said, one of these times we're bound to crap out, you know. And then we laughed, you know, so it was that kind of thing. And so anyway, I had no intention of quitting. I could have quit any time, but I knew I would never do that. You know? And about, let's see, maybe a month later, coming in for a night flight, night landing on aircraft carrier, very tricky business. We got what's called a green deck. That means, pilot can't see anything. You were flying on radar and a big mirror there that you could see how the plane related to the flight deck, which was, because you were in the middle of the ocean, was doing this, and the plane is doing this, and the wind is blowing, so it's tricky coming in. And we got a green deck, and we came in, and pilot cut the engines, and it's a controlled crash landing. That's a good description of carrier landings. And somebody on the flight deck crew had screwed up, and there were 2 helicopters spotted right in the landing area. You couldn't see them until the last second, And the pilot tried to pull up, and the wheels caught one of the helicopters, and we did this and this and this and ended up crashing into a plane on the bow. And all this time I'm saying, God, you didn't want to go over the side, because you had to get out. That plane was going to sink really quick if it went into the drink, So, but I remember relief, say, oh God, we stopped, and we're not in the ocean, But then I started saying, well, I can't get out of here, And the whole plane had the starboard side had crumpled, come back, and the radar console was pinning me to the seat, And I thought I was all right, but I couldn't get out, And they had an overhead hatch, and there was a big yellow. It wasn't as big as my memory had it. I looked at it. I went aboard. They had an S2F. Again, I went to visit friends in New York City one time, and the Intrepid was based there, and I had my daughter with me. And so I said, let's go see the Intrepid, and they had an S2F there. And I looked in. You could look inside, And my memory of that yellow D-ring was, big thing that and it was a little too thin, 2 finger deal. But that's tricks of memory, Anyway, I popped the hatch, and the air crew were coming. It climbed up there, on top of the plane to try to get us out, And they were laughing their tails off, He said, that was the most pathetic thing you'd ever seen. This little overhead hatch popping off, and going, bouncing off the flight deck, So anyway, but it was a serious crash. The co-pilot who sat in front of me, both his legs were broken, and the pilot, his right leg was broken. My first crewman who sat here was okay. I had a collapsed lung and busted ribs and turned out a cracked leg, and landed in the Newport Naval Hospital. So that was a whole new adventure, And even though I was, really banged up bad and a lot of pain, they had to do 3 or 4 operations, And I spent 4 months there, and I can remember. Oh,
No, don't worry about it.
okay. I can remember though thinking, God, this is, I remember thinking thank God I don't have to do that anymore, you know. I don't have to worry about, you know, well, going into the ready room, climbing into an aircraft, getting shot off a ship in the middle of the ocean. Thank God I don't have to do that anymore, you know. And so anyway, I survived, and the doctors, when I was getting, you know, I was on my feet, you know, they said, well, you know, we can give you a medical discharge if you want, you know. I said, you're banged up enough so that, and I said, I surprised myself. I said, no. He said, I only had a year and a half left to do, and I want to finish it. I want to do it, you know. And I thought, they said, well, you can't fly anymore, you know, because I was missing part of a lung here, you know. And I said, well, that's okay, you know. The bloom was off of that rose anyway. So they said, well, so then I went to a holding company waiting for orders, you know, and I thought, well, I had all my sea duty time in, so I thought, I'll just get a desk job someplace, you know. Orders came in, USS Forrestal. So I spent my whole 5 years at sea, and it was, you know, and again, you know, it was a risky thing, you know, and that's what I say to, you know, young people who may be thinking about getting involved in this kind of thing. Make sure you know what you're getting into, you know, because there were guys that did not survive this, you know. We lost in the squadron, we lost 4 guys, 2 officers and one of them was a friend of mine, you know. Plane came in, again, night landing, missed the wires. Something happened, nobody knew exactly what. Just kept on going over the side. Night sank in, you know, a minute. And there was no way to do a rescue, you know. And we were, you know, that's the other half of it. You know, the positive side was, it was a great adventure, you know. If you gotta be young though. The other side is, you know, there are risks. You know, it can be very risky. So, risks, positive. You know, nothing wrong with a good adventure, and it can be tricky because you say, you know, if you think too much about it, you're never going to do it. Mm-hmm. You know. Sometimes you got to take a chance, you know, and it's like Charlie Mulvaney said, you know, it's all a crapshoot anyway, and he just said, sometimes you crap out, you know, so that is a healthy attitude towards life, you know, so as far as I'm concerned.
Absolutely.
And there's just the only story, again, the Forrestal, it was, at that time, it was a supercarrier, you know, and it, by comparison to the Wasp, it was like a luxury liner, you know, for me, you know, a lot more space, you know, and of course it was new then, it was modern, you know, the only thing that was we were coming into, we'd been on a long cruise down to South America and Africa, you know, and oh, there's a story, Africa. We crossed the equator, and that's, in the Navy, that's a big deal, you know, because you are, before you have crossed the equator anywhere in the world, you're called a polywog. You cross the equator, you're a shellback. And and of course there's, you once you cross, there's an initiation, and they dump garbage on you and all that stuff. But then they have swim call, and they put lowered cargo nets over the side, of the ship, and you could go swimming, in part to clean up, but it was part of being baptized, by King Neptune, silly stuff. But old, old naval tradition, crossing the equator, big deal, And we were off the coast of Africa, and probably about 400 miles. And I remember turning around, swimming, turning around, looking away from the ship and everybody else, and just looking straight for the horizon. And I had this sense of, God, I'm small, ocean in every direction, and a continent over there someplace, and here I am floating in the damn water, And I gotta say, I turned around real quick to make sure the ship was still there. But it was at the time, it was a really profound, momentary experience, alone. Imagining, I'd imagine, what if I were just alone, floating in this vast ocean, wow, So, anyway, in the Navy they call them sea stories. You start telling sea stories, and it's hard to shut up, because one thing leads to another, Anyway, we were coming back from this long cruise on the Forrestal, and we were pulling into Norfolk, and this was, I was cleaning up my space in the office and getting ready for Liberty, and that's what you did when you were pulling into port, And the air intelligence officer came rushing in and said, the president's been shot. Kennedy was president then. And that was the Kennedy assassination. And we were, we just didn't, everybody just said, what do you say? What do you do? But the ship, you can always feel the engines running, on the ship. There's this vibration there, and I remember the engines stopped, and then they reversed the screws, backed it up, and that's a lot of vibration, and we're stopping the ship, backing it up, turning around. We were going back to sea, because at that time nobody knew what the implications were of this, whether it was the beginning of World War III or what, And the bottom line was, this was a ship of war. That's what we were supposed to be doing out there. So anyway, that was, a lot of history. That's why I'm doing this. I sure would feel bad if this story passed with me, And I told you about, when I was in the Navy, there were these old guys, old sailors who had been around the world 2 or 3 times, had been through 2 wars, and were going into the 3rd one. And I can remember at the time thinking, they must have 1,000 stories to tell, and nobody is ever going to know them, because they're not going to tell them, And even at that young age, I said, by God, I'm going to remember this, I'm going to remember this, it's worth remembering. So, that is my tale.
This table, set for one, is small, symbolizing the frailty of one prisoner alone against his oppressors. The tablecloth is white, symbolizing the purity of their intentions to respond to their country's call to arms. The single red rose, displayed in a vase, reminds us of the families and loved ones of our comrades in arms who keep the faith awaiting their return. The red ribbon, tied so prominently on the vase, is reminiscent of the red ribbon worn upon the lapel and breast of thousands who bear witness to their unyielding determination to demand a proper accounting of our missing. The candle is lit, symbolizing the upward reach of their undefeated spirit. A slice of lemon is on the bread plate to remind us of their bitter fate. There is salt upon the bread plate, symbolic of the family's tears as they wait. The glass is inverted. They cannot toast with us today. The chair is empty. They are not here. Remember, all of you who served with them and called them comrades, who depended upon their might and aid and relief upon them, for surely they have not forgotten you. Until the day they come home, remember.
Squad, attention! Port arms! Unlock! Ready! Aim! Fire! Aim! Fire! Aim! Fire! Port arms! Lock! Present arms! Port arms! Right shoulder arms! Right face! Forward march!